Yes, here we go. A very good morning to you, Grenada, and the rest of the world. Today happens to be the 12th day of May, 2019. I'm George Grant saying welcome to today's edition of Sundays with George Grant. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Do we have a scorcher here for you this morning? A lot of interesting things happening today, and I am so delighted that you're in the audience and going to be a part of it. I can't tell you, even the moms who are out there today celebrating Mother's Day, happy, happy, happy Mother's Day to every one of you. Just want to take a moment here to let you know that you are deeply appreciated. And those of you who still have your moms around, please take a moment and show them that appreciation. There is none other, apart from God, than your mom. Please bless her spirit today. Hope you guys have a nice lunch or a nice visit with friends or on the beach or whatever you plan on doing today. Keep God at the forefront. Pilgrims, let's get into today's rundown and see what's cooking here this morning. It's going to be an interesting morning. We're going to get started, as we do always, with the buzz. In that little section, we will bring you a reading from the Holy Scriptures. You know, we go nowhere without that. And then, in addition to that, we've got a feedback section. Well, in the feedback section this morning, maybe I have to change that name from feedback to something else. Because in the feedback section this morning, we have Little Angel, as you probably see up there on Facebook already this morning. Little Angel is going to be making her weekly visit, her weekly contribution. And then, this being Mother's Day, I got my hands on something last night from our good friend, Anthony Wendell DeRiggs. And Mr. DeRiggs, I'm sure many of you know as a poet and an author. Well, he did a little piece to mothers. Happy Mother's Day. And we're going to share that with you this morning. And as you listen to it, I hope that you'll give some deep thought to the value of our moms. Now, there's also a piece from this week's sitting of the Senate that I want to share with you. And I think it's very important that you watch this. Those of you who like flying kites at this time of the year, hey, no problem flying kites. I flew kites when I was a little boy. Had an awful lot of fun doing it. But there are some matters that you ought to be aware of if you're going to be kite flying. You can be an absolute hazard to the lives of others. Please. This week in Parliament, the Senate, Senator Cristiali actually spoke about it. He talked about two things that are very annoying. One, the fact that a lot of people fly kites in close proximity to the airport, which is an issue. It's a safety issue. And the other thing he spoke about was the fact that some people leave their kites up 24/7, sometimes days on end. Huh? Please, folks, there's some of us who need to sleep at night. And this is something we've talked about quite a bit over the past few weeks. And in fact, every Easter we find ourselves talking about it because people leave their kites up and all night long, please, some of us work hard during the day and we have to go to work the next morning, and at night you'd really like to get a little sleep. No, the only few hours of rest that we have, and you can't sleep. And what about the kids who have to go to school the following day and couldn't sleep because some inconsiderate person left a kite up overnight? It's not nice. It's not nice. Okay? So we'll hear what Senator Dialli had to say about that in the Senate in just a few minutes. Then we get down to our editorials. As always, we've got two for you. The Grenada Advocate, which is captioned, Get Prepared. You know what that's about, eh? Today is what, the 12th of May? In what, 18, 19 days or so from now? The hurricane season, the 2019 hurricane season, Atlantic season, will officially begin. And a lot of people wait until they hear the first storm warning before thinking about, oh, geez, you know, I forgot to do this, I forgot to do that. Don't wait, okay? So listen to what the Grenada Advocate has to say today and get prepared, all right? Our second editorial, the St. Mark Shrimp Project. That's something that's creating some waves here in Grenada right now. Yeah. Well, the New Today took on that this week. And we're going to share that with you. As far as interviews are concerned, Mr. Brian Pitt pays us a visit on Good Day Grenada. That's our weekday program, 9 to 12. Sorry, 9 to 10 every weekday morning. Brian comes in on a Friday, or speaks to us electronically on a Friday. And this week, as always, Brian is very passionate. You know, there are certain principles he believes in. And when he sees those being violated, it concerns him, and he shows his concern. Well, this week he issued a call to Grenada to wake up. And I thought it was important enough, the stuff that he said. So I'm going to share that with you this morning. All right? Brian, I described him on the website here as a social advocate, small businessman like me. But he's somebody who loves his country very dearly. And when he sees a lot of the stuff that's going on, he can't sit still and keep his lips shut. No, he speaks out. And I'm hoping that more people will speak out. Then, let's see, we move on to our feature. When this one comes up, which will be at about 11 o'clock this morning, I'm going to ask you to sit back, cup of coffee, coconut water, whatever, put your feet up and listen. Because you're about to hear some frank talk about Leeward Islands Air Transport, better known to us as LIAT. Okay? They've been in the news a lot lately, headlining. And I thought, you know, let's try and get a group of people together and listen, you know, take a look at some of the issues that have been plaguing this carrier. And when I talk about issues, you've heard a lot of talk about the fact that LIAT needs money. Okay. You're hearing talk about LIAT's poor management. You're hearing talk about LIAT's schedule. Hey, there's a recent one that popped up this past week. We, Grenada, have become a shareholder in the regional carrier. I thought we had tiny bit of shares before, but anyhow, the talk is we have now become a shareholder officially. And so I managed to put together a group of people to chat with us this morning. The first one here on the list is a gentleman by the name of Terry Forrester. Terry used to work with LIAT years and years ago, okay? And he's the political leader of the Grenada Progressive Movement. And the reason why I invited Terry is because, in the process of trying to put together this team, I called a friend and said, "You have any ideas who I should invite?" And she said to me, "Hey, George, just recently I saw Terry Forrester on another radio network talking about LIAT. And the man made some very, very valid points. And I think you might want to hear what he has to say." So I picked up the phone and said, "Terry, can you?" Yes. Terry's always amenable to invitations from us, and I do appreciate that very much, Terry. The other person is Mr. Siddiqui Sylvester. Siddiqui's a longtime friend of mine. Goes back, we go back many, many years. Actually, Presentation Brothers College. Let's not talk about how long ago that was, okay? Siddiqui is a travel agent, and he runs a travel agency. They were on the Carnage near to the pedestrian plaza for many years, but not too long ago they moved to, the intersection of Young Street and Scott Street, St. George. Yeah. They moved to that area not so long ago. And Siddiqui also has some very valid opinions about LIAT and why they're in the dilemma that they're in. So he's going to be joining us electronically by Zoom. And then there's Mr. James Lynch. Folks, I only met this man for the first time yesterday, and we did so electronically. I'm not sure where he is. I think he may be in Antigua, but he's a Barbadian. And Mr. Lynch chatted with me yesterday afternoon. He, by the way, is a Caribbean aviation consultant and a former pilot with LIAT. Not only that, he was the secretary of LIALPA, which is the Leeward Islands Airline Transport Union or Pilots Association or whatever. This man has a lot to say. And let me tell you, you got to hear what he has to say this morning. Now, as you take a look at the rundown, you probably see that the name Jerry George, who's absolutely no stranger to us, is also listed there. However, I have not been able to confirm his appearance. I spoke with him yesterday, and Jerry lives in St. Vincent, spends quite a bit of time here as well. But he is currently in Florida. Apparently, his son is graduating, and he said to me, that's the reason why he's up there. And obviously, there's going to be some sort of celebration. So he wanted to check with his sister, and he would get back to me. I spoke to him yesterday afternoon, and he said he'd get back to me later in the day, but I haven't heard from him. So I'm only keeping my little pinkies crossed that Jerry is going to join us. Jerry's a regional journalist. Many of you may know him from the television program. I think it's a monthly program, Time to Face the Facts. Yeah. Very opinionated as well. So, you listen to that rundown and you can understand why I mentioned that we got a lot cooking here this morning. A lot. Okay? That's going to take care of our rundown. Now, let's just turn around here for a little bit. Woo! On social media so far this morning, Margaret is saying Happy Mother's Day from New York, Anthea Rollo, and she's also wishing everybody a Happy Mother's Day. So is Ryan Jaban out there in Florida. Carla Ray. Hello, Carla. Long time no see, girl. Finally woke up? Good to see you. Chester is saying good morning and greetings from Zurich. Good to see you, Chess. Hope you have a nice Mother's Day as well. Kipling Francis is sending his blessings to all, as Kipling normally does. Jackie O. Hello, Jackie O. Does that mean Jackie, Ohio? I mean, OH? Sort of a synonym there for Ohio. Let's see, who else? Oh, hello there. My little thingy is frozen. Hold on. Try and get back. Okay. Glenn Andrew Mark is saying good morning and sending his blessings to everybody on Mother's Day. Spice Babes Duncan is doing likewise. Ernesto says, good morning, Principal G pilgrims and all mothers in Grenada and the surrounding areas. Blessings on Mother's Day. Also, my condolences to Karani and the James family on their recent loss. Yeah, Ernesto, for those of you who may have missed it during the week, Karani, James's mom, passed away this week. Let's see. Ryan says, coconut flex guide for me with 2 miles. Whatever, Ryan. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, folks, I'll tell you what. Let's take our first little break here now, and we'll come on back and get right into the buzz. Boy, 17 minutes after the hour already.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
My name is Jennifer James, and I've been making confectionaries for the past 7 years. Growing up as a little girl, I always wanted to make these little things: forge, sugar cake, tamarind ball, these little things. I read something actually, and it said that tamarind itself is very good because it eliminates fat from the liver. You get the mature tamarind and you crack it, you shell it out. I would add a little baking soda, some spices. I would leave it to rest probably for about 2 hours and then add my sugar and just start kneading. I usually knead it growing up hard enough so that I always wanted to make this little thing. When I finish roll it, I will paste it with the actual white or brown sugar, and you have a nice tamarind ball. I have been providing food fair with tamarind ball about 6 years now. I started producing tamarind ball to sell for the school children. I thought I could advance somewhere. So I went to food fair and I asked one of the sales persons there if they would be interested in selling my tamarind ball. And she told me yes. She told me to bring 20 packets to start with. It was really a joy for me because I wanted to extend on my little business. My name is Jennifer James, and I work with the food fair to provide you with tamarind balls.
Okie dokie, folks. I'm just scanning through things here and seeing who they and who though they. In addition to those of you on the box, I'm seeing that George McLeish is also on there. Good to see you, George. I haven't seen this gentleman face to face in what seems like eons, but good to see you there on Facebook, Georgie. And who else? Who else? Jackie O says, no, I admire the late First Lady, Jackie O, but my name is really Jackie. Okay, Jackie, nice to have you, and I understand that she lives in Virginia. So good to see you, Jackie. Welcome. Pass the word around. Lori Bridgman is saying, hi. Lori's going to be a little bit different here this morning. She's saying, happy Mummy Day to all the wonderful mothers in the Spice Isle. Happy Mummy Day to you too, Lori. Good to see you. And Ryan says here that he likes Jerry's video programs. Hey, Dennis. Good morning. Dennis, are you still in England or you're back in Kayaku? Dennis says, good morning, George, and good morning, class. Looks like we've all moved over. Looks like looks like we've all moved over here now. So that's why I'm late. Apologies, Christine and Dennis. P.S. I'm not getting anything on the radio and tune in. That's because for some reason our feed has not been going out to the audio platforms. You're getting us on Facebook right now, and later on this afternoon after the program, we'll stick it up there on YouTube as well. So if you subscribe to our channel on YouTube, you'll be notified whenever a program goes up there. Okay, Dennis? Sorry about that. We're still giving some consideration as to whether or not we should reinstate those audio platforms. Now, let's wait. 22 minutes after the hour. Running a little bit behind time this morning. Let's get into today's edition of The Buzz, and we shall begin with an opening scripture. Remind the people. I know a lot of you are not going to be too happy about hearing this. Now, this is not Georgie speaking. This is the Word of God. Okay? Remind the people to be subject to rulers and authorities, to be obedient, to be ready to do whatever is good, to slander no one, to be peaceable and considerate, and always to be gentle towards everyone. At one time, we too were foolish, disobedient, deceived and enslaved by all kinds of passions and pleasures. We lived in malice and envy, being hated and hating one another. But when the kindness and love of God, our Savior, appeared, He saved us, not because of righteous things we had done, but because of His mercy. That reading, pilgrims, came to you from the book of Titus, Titus chapter 3, verses 1 to 5. Just let me turn back here for a minute to good old Facebook. On Facebook, Facebook says, yep, Dennis Perkins says, yep, still in London. It's a bit sunny here today. A bit sunny. Teeny weeny bit sunny. Petra Andrew Thomas. Mother's Day greetings to everybody viewing. And she says to everyone, it should be extra special. Dennis says, please do reinstate, George, then I can listen all over the house and not just sit in front of the computer. Okay, Dennis. We'll work on it. Jackie O says, very appropriate scripture. Good reminder on this Mother's Day to do some reflection. Absolutely, Jackie. Absolutely. So, time now to turn to this week's contribution from Little Angel. Little Angel says, valuable contributions, major concerns. That's the caption of her little piece here this week. She says, it is not too late to highlight the number of valuable contributions made by all four guests, including Citizen Rollo, who appeared on the SWGG program on April 28th. Citizen John Rollo, as he's often called, spoke about the importance of diagnosis. To paraphrase what he said, no matter the extent of a problem, getting to the root cause is critical in finding a solution. Citizen Rollo went on to recommend that the 2007 law, which gave Grenada's Minister of Energy certain rights and privileges in relation to the country's oil and gas reserves, should be repealed. Recommendations by Citizen Rollo to appeal the 2007 law and revise Grenada's constitution are significant and indicated an understanding of what could be the root cause of some of the island's problems. These recommendations may not eliminate all of the current challenges being faced by the country, but will set in motion the process of getting things right in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Okay, something keeps popping up here. Contributions by the other three guests also point towards the need to rewrite the Constitution. Observations were that Grenadians should be made self-sufficient. The island should avoid the danger of relying on paper money, which cannot save lives, and instead be committed towards more sustainable efforts such as protecting its fish and water resources. Given Grenada's political status, in which the island operates as a one-party state with no legitimate opposition, aspirations of this nature may never materialize. Two other observations were that certain matters of national interest are better handled across political party lines, and there is a growing number of people all over the world voicing opinions and making efforts to know and be heard. Grenadians ought to do likewise, but they are subjected to self-censorship and media censorship, and do not have the will to talk and be heard, to discuss and dialogue for their own good and the good of their country. The discussion also made it clear that there were agreements and other agreements, opinions after opinions in relation to the oil deal. What is even more concerning is that Grenada may have been well advised on the approach to the deal, but chose to do otherwise. The island also had elections after elections. Yet, today, Grenada is no better off than it was yesterday, and indications are that these choices could be the result of failed leadership. The current Constitution makes no provision to remedy failed leadership in a timely manner, and the only alternative is to seek redress at general elections which are expected every 5 years. Ironically, the electoral process is prone to fraud, corruption, and unfairness. It is also controlled by those who are at fault, providing no hope for the people. As a result, the statement by one of the 4 guests that Grenadians are responsible for the status of the current oil deal and their choices of government is debatable. There was sufficient evidence that the 2018 general elections were unfair, and the results may not have reflected the will of the people. If this is true, the electorate should not be held responsible for the current state of the island's oil and gas affairs, nor should it be blamed for government failures. It is difficult to find words to describe Grenada's current plight, but one thing is sure: Grenadians will need to make a more concerted effort to save their island from falling deeper and deeper into what may be described as an already failed state. Signed, Little Angel. Yvonne Joseph's also out there with us this morning. So is Mickaman Alexander, Mary Campbell. What does Mary have to say? Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and to those who perform duties as mothers. Yeah, okay. Folks, before I take my next little break, since we're talking about mothers, allow me to share with you this little poem. It's only about eight and a half minutes or so long, from Anthony Wendell de Riggs, as he pays tribute on this Mother's Day to the mothers of the world.
Happy Mother's Day for mothers present and remembering the mothers who left us in difficult times with ends to meet and shoes to put upon our feet. When our bellies ached and cried out loud, and all around a foggy cloud, our kind mothers were always there, like anchors fast throughout the year. Resolute mothers with dedication strong, who never sought to guide us wrong. God bless them on this special day. Our thanks are more than words can say. And to that special mother who struggled, she knew the struggle. She felt the strain. Her wondrous smile remained the same. The Lord, she said, would soon provide. She labored on with constant pride. So soon it passed, he left them all, and she was there to feel the fall. He gave his all, while strength he bore. His Maker called, he was no more. The children stared with hungry eyes, no fancy plates, no tasty pies. But then kind neighbors saw her plight. God's helping hand was a great delight. And then they grew into robust boys who never had the best of toys. But oh, the love for a mother dear who pulled them up from life's despair. And from River Sally to River Road, our mothers bore a heavy load. We laud them for their grit and will, and times our empty stomachs fill. This day, our mothers we salute, who labored since our voices were mute. They provided us with such love and care in trying time from year to year. So today we'll make a mother's dish. We'll give them anything they wish. Oil dung and chicken, peas and rice. Our mother's love is like our valued spice. And for those who went the extra mile, on our faces they put the bigger smile. Relax and have a blissful day. Our joys are more than words can say. And just recap a picture I'm trying to paint here of a mother as she reads her Bible in the night. The night descends, tranquility reigns. Mother reads softly from the enduring Psalms. She reads for us. Music rises from the banana stool and frogs in harmony sing. A gentle breeze through the window caresses my face. I feel the love of God in the whisper of the breeze and the soothing peace. The blessings bathe my soul. I smile and I give thanks, and then I prepare for nocturnal bliss. And we must remember our mothers who left us on this Mother's Day. Oh Mother, your presence yet we feel, and the love that fell on us like blessed showers from above, still waters our lives with peace and joy. The days come and the days go, but time will never erase the good that sprung so freely from your heart. We will never forget the hands that nurtured us, or the eyes that blossomed faith. The inspiration that nudged us to excel did not fade when your eyelids closed. You walked with us. You were our friend. A dear mother who filled our days with unspeakable bliss. And during the times our sun was not too bright, you were the beacon that guided our feet and kept us from stumbling in the dark. Your compassionate hands were always present to lead us through the gloom. Mother, you were a pillar of devotion. You taught us to pray and to give God thanks. And today your light, that glorious beam, shines from above and finds its way into our souls. We long to see the smile, to hear the comforting word that sparked hope. You were a flower, as comely as the rose that sprung from the garden you cherished, a model of selflessness and sacrifice, and we give praise to our Creator for bestowing upon you the gifts that raised our spirit and sealed the bond between family and friends. The flesh is gone, but still today, we feel your presence and your godly smile, for today our spirits hug. Dear Mom, it seems like yesterday your flower bloomed so bright. You showered us with tender care, our bond secured so tight. We hardly pause or stop to think the knot was on the brink. Now all the joys of yesterday are our cherished link. You're gone, but yet your pleasant glow undimmed by passing time. The precious memories are with us of a mother true and kind. Still each day we see your face. Your spirit endures long, and when we are sad and need a lift, the thoughts of you are our treasured gift. One day too, our bells will sound. We'll move to a different shore. You'll be there to welcome us with blessings at heaven's door. And all those today who can hold the hands of mothers dear, seize the time, respect and love, for you do not know the year. It was the mighty Sparrow who said, every day should be Mother's Day. So to all the Facebook mothers and other mothers, have a wonderful Mother's Day. God bless you. Anthony Wendell de Riggs.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And by the way, I see that he's now joined us on Facebook. Good to see you, Anthony. Happy Mom's Day. Happy Mommy Day to you, too. Also with us this morning, Green's Auto Body, Eric Stone Mitchell, Clive Baker, Simeon McVeigh, Dennis Charles, and Yvonne Joseph is saying Happy Mother's Day to everybody who's on here on the network this morning, and all the beautiful, strong Grenadian mothers. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Yvonne. Folks, one more thing before we move on here to our next little break, and it's about kite flying. Kite flying. Most of us have flown kites at one time or another and obtained a great deal of joy from so doing. But back in those days, we did not have the volume of air traffic that we now do. And we were also a little bit more considerate. We didn't leave kites up for days at a time. SD No Tap, good morning. He's also on there with us. This past week, at a sitting of the Senate, the senator who is responsible for the private sector, he made some comments about an incident which occurred recently where a light aircraft could easily have been brought down, costing us lives, dear lives. And he also talked about the annoyance of leaving kites up at night. I'm referring to Senator Chris D'Ali. I pulled out this little excerpt, which is about 3 minutes or so long, and I want to share it with you, with the hope that those of you who fly kites would be considerate. Listen to what the senator had to say.
Sorry, Mr. President, I just wanted to make one quick intervention on public business and to deal with the issue of this kite flying situation. And I'm a little bit sensitive to it because of where I live in Fort Judy and the fact that over the period we've been trying to control this, and recently I'm informed that we had an incident that interfered with an aircraft that was flying in a particular area where the kite got entangled with the engine and could have been disastrous. And I raise this point to say, Mr. President, that we are a reactive people. And I fear the day that for the sake of wanting to fly kite and enjoy kite flying, we may take down an aircraft. And we don't listen when the authorities say it is not permitted with certain zones. And we believe that we're just making nonsense and we're trying to be difficult and to impede the enjoyment of kite flying, and but it can have disastrous effects. So I raise that on two fronts. for the public to understand that there's a safety issue. And when the airport authority declare certain zones as no-fly zones for kite flying, it is for a particular reason. And the reason is that we could extend those kites to a distance that can interfere with the flight path of an aircraft coming in, and that could take down a total aircraft and cause disaster, and then we'll see if we knew. So I raised that from that perspective. And the second perspective, of course, is that I think we all understand that kite flying is a great enjoyment. When you're young, all of us fly kite and we know what it's about and what to do. But, you know, Mr. President, we have the added issue of people putting up their kites and leaving it up in the sky for days. And some people can't sleep because of the noise. And I think we need to be more considerate in this aspect. And I appeal to the public that it is not only an issue of your enjoyment. Your enjoyment must not be at the sacrifice of somebody else's own, and the other person is in total annoyment, being annoyed by your enjoyment. So, and then the added issue of the safety now of flight paths. So I say that, Mr. President, and I beg that the police get involved as well, that when we declare for the period certain zones and no-fly zones, we need stronger enforcement. And I know our publics will be annoyed, but it is for the greater safety of us and everyone around us, and we need to be considerate. And I raise that as a point that has concerned me, because I live in a particular area where this thing would have occurred, and it really is worrying that we not paying attention to the warnings that are issued. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Senator Christie Alley this past week in the Senate, okay? Folks, nobody is saying don't fly kites. Please, don't misinterpret what he's saying. And I also hope that the authorities are listening. He's calling on the police to do what they have to do. Huh? Please. Safe, not just the matter of safety. Lives are at stake here. Lives. So please. All right, let me see now. No, we done that. Let's do this.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Spice Island.
Redleg, energizing our Grenada.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Okie doke, folks. Time now is 9:49. Yes, sirree. Now, let's digress a little bit to Friday. I'm doing this because, you know, a lot of you are at work on weekday mornings, and therefore you're not able to join us, even though I do know some people who listen to us and watch us while they're on the job. But for the majority of you, I know that you're not able to do so on a weekday morning. But a lot of very important stuff is discussed on Friday mornings. The program's called Good Day Grenada, and for those of you who have not seen it, on Tuesday mornings we usually are joined by Mr. Ray Roberts. On Wednesdays we're joined by Sharon Roberts, no relation. On Thursdays, Mr. Alan Baczynski. And on Fridays by Brian Pitt. Well, this past Friday, we got into a bit of a discussion where, I mean, you could just see and hear the frustration that came through Brian's voice, and mine too. You know, there's just so much going on in this place that there's sometimes a feeling of helplessness, hopelessness, and I'll tell you, if that's where they want to have us, looks like they might be doing a pretty good job. But fortunately, I think the eyes of a lot of Grenadians are being opened, and should make Brian pretty happy, because that's one of the things he was calling for, and you will hear that in just a few minutes. Calling for people to become a little bit more aware of what's happening around you, rather than, you know, going into a little booth every 5 years, X, yeah, and then just leaving people to do what they want, carte blanche, regardless of who gets hurt. So I pulled out this segment with Brian, and I want you to check this out. At this point, we would normally be bringing you the national report. However, take a look. See that gentleman up there? He's been sitting there for quite a few minutes, looking pretty. And I think it would be unfair to keep him waiting any longer. So without further ado, I'm going to say good morning to Mr. Brian Pitt and his blue headphones. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, George, and good morning to your listeners and viewers. I keep forgetting that you have listeners and viewers. From time to time, I believe the conversation is just between you and I. But good morning to the rest of the world who log into your website.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Can I ask you a question, George?
Yes, sir.
Does GIS give you equal time for programming on GIS?
No, sir.
You know, George, those people who are proficient at propaganda get other people to propagandize what they have to say, and they don't provide equal time. You know, you carry this national report from GIS, which I consider most times propaganda. But they don't give you any time. That is not fair.
You know, Mr. Pitt, it's interesting that you should. It's interesting that you should bring that up, and I'm glad that you did, because, as you know, I'm labeled by the government of this nation as being very anti-government. Yet, I make sure that in all my programs, I give these people fair time.
But George, later on this morning, I want to address that because, you know, I have been searching my mind to find how are we going to find a way to check and balance the governance of this country. And I am still searching my mind, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. I want to open this morning with an idea that came across my mind now that we are preparing for Carnival. You know, there's a lot of Carnival talk. We launched Carnival last weekend. And we're celebrating the jump and wine. We're celebrating the fact that Mr. Killer was the international soca monarch in Trinidad and Tobago. We're celebrating that Bourne and Mr. Legs did very well, and the other guys, they all did very well. What I'm not hearing, though, is a policy decision by the government of Grenada to speak to the performing arts. Whether or not we will give people scholarships, whether or not we will allow these young men who are pursuing a career in music, duty-free concessions and all equipment coming in for that purpose. You know, this is not reinventing the wheel, George. Let me tell you a brief story. Jamaica and reggae. Reggae is now an international form of celebrated music. As a matter of fact, it is on the Grammys list where soca is trying to get. And many moons ago, I think it was Michael Manley recognized the importance of reggae to the national economy and put a policy in place to allow people who are participating or want to advance their career in reggae duty-free concessions on all equipment. At one point there, George, in Jamaica, there was a recording studio in almost every house because people were given the initiative to go there and do something. Reggae is now on the world stage, but we are jumping and whining and not coming up with a policy. Maybe that policy could be in the name of Mr. Killer. George, I rest my case on that.
Yeah. Okay, Brian. There's not much left for me to say. Go ahead.
I know, and it's a pity that we don't have people guiding us in the right direction in a lot of these issues. George, I was listening to that LIAT debate, and for some time now, I've been trying to find answers to who is going to provide checks and balances for the governance of this country. Who is going to make sure that there is transparent and disclosure on issues related to government action or inaction? You know, Ray Roberts had an ongoing battle with Grenada Broadcasting Network, GBN, about this young lady who is hosting their
Beyond the Headlines
program. And the lady's a lawyer, so I mean, she should be able to ask questions to get to the bottom of issues. The question is whether she will ask the questions that will get people to be transparent and open. So it has nothing to do with who she is. It has to do with what she is and whether or not she will dare to ask the questions that should be asked. And I think that is where the discussion comes in. And in my search, George, to find an answer, it took me to our Constitution. It took me to our Constitution and Chapter 8, I think it is, which speaks to judicial provision. And maybe the judiciary will be the answer for some of these questions, but how do we get there? And George, I go back to, governments seem to want to control everything. I go back to post-Ivan again, George. Post-Ivan, there was one building that looked after the parliament and the courts, and for some reason we refused to build back a court. We are in a discussion now about where we will have a court, and it behoves me that we are still having this dialogue and not having open discussion. But why didn't we not build a court? Is it that the executive and the parliamentary people who are now with one decide that they don't want to have that check? You see where I'm going with this, George? Mm-hmm. We are trying very hard to erode all the checks and balances that allow for transparent and open governance.
Well, Brian, I don't think you're the only person sharing that view. I've heard a number of people express concern that there's some, or might be some, ulterior motive to leaving our court system in the state that it is.
I don't think it's a might anymore. I think, I don't want to say it's a conspiracy theory. I don't want to say it's a whatever, but it's evident that people are trying very hard not to disclose or be transparent about most issues in regard to governance. And I'm going through the list of people that can provide this, George. I'm looking at the journalists, I look at the radio stations. It is almost, most of us right now are self-censored. And let's note, George, that radio stations are the key to people getting information in Grenada. But Grenada Broadcast does not have a channel that people can listen to on the radio. And your station, George, might be the only station where there might be a view that challenges the transparency of government.
That's why they had to get rid of it.
And I don't know how we're going to get over this hump, George, but we have to find a way because it could lead to destruction.
Yeah. But then again, it happens because, those who are in a position to do something about it didn't. When this station was shut down the first time, which was about 3 or 4 months after we first went on the air, would you believe that the Media Workers Association of this country remained absolutely mute, never said a word? And one of them happened to be, if I'm not mistaken, a representative for an organization called Reporters Without Borders. Nada, nothing. So, I mean, it's one thing to do these crazy things and get away with it, but they get away with it because we allow them to. So, and we have to take some of the blame.
But George, and it brings me to this very important point, and I'm hesitating to raise it, but I'm going to raise it. We have moved from an economy that is supported by multilateral arrangements. In other words, you have the European Union providing funds in Grenada to do certain things, and you have different groupings, to a place of unilateralism, bilateralism, so that we now have an arrangement, for example, with the Chinese. And let me raise the Chinese because it's a topical issue, where the Chinese really don't care about governance. They care about what they can get from the support of Grenada. So they have this Silk Road project, for example. And I think we should be wary of spiders and silk, because spiders are the ones who give us silk, but they could be deadly. George? And most of these bilateral arrangements really don't care about governance. As a matter of fact, they might be more interested in keeping the government in power that facilitates their arrangement. Yes, George? Mm-hmm. And a lot of us now, because our economies are on the ground, they're dragging, because we don't have those key things like agriculture, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, because I hear the IMF is now talking about that we are totally dependent on grants and handouts. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Comment.
Yeah.
And even though the Silk Road of China has been blamed for economies in Africa going very bad because they're not giving total grant, they may give you a loan, even though it's at 0%, it's a loan and you have to pay it back. And a lot of these countries are now in a bind because they can't pay back some of these things. So a lot of us are going by the way of bilateral arrangements. Let's take Venezuela. We went into a bilateral arrangement with Venezuela to Petrocaribbean. And now we find ourselves in a position now where what are we going to do? Say we're not supporting Maduro? I don't know what's going on in Venezuela. I have my own theories about that. But bilateral arrangements could get us into trouble. But we don't care about that trouble because we want to stay in power. And that is unfortunate, and I don't know how we can get out of this malaise, George. And I'm going to continue to look through the Constitution and see where we can find hope, George.
Margaret says here, Brian, that is exactly why they pursue bilateral arrangements.
Yes, and unfortunately, we need a loud and vibrant opposition. At one point in time, the NDC was going around this country having little corner meetings and communicating to the people of this country. I don't think they're doing that anymore. And if they are waiting on the radio stations in Grenada to broadcast anything that they put out, they're sadly mistaken. The only way to get the word out to people is to go and meet the people. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, George, and I'm worried. I'm worried very much that the way we're going. Let me tell you, for example, I heard the IMF report representative in Grenada recently talking about a number of issues. And all of a sudden, I am hearing that we should pay attention and put focus on agriculture. I'm saying, but where the hell was the IMF a couple of years ago? And not only that, George, they're no longer talking about unemployment. They're talking about sustainable employment. For those who have any sense of economics, sustainable employment is what you talk about, period. Not building concrete and everybody being a gardener and a bartender. Sustainable employment. All of a sudden, the IMF, they have us where they want us, and they're talking about agriculture and sustainable employment. George, we're in a deep hole, and I really don't have the answer. But I'm going to keep reading the Constitution, and I might find help there.
And share with us.
And I will share it with you, but I think we all should go back to that document, George, and see what we can find, because we're going down a road where transparency is not what governments do. Guyana, George, found oil. And it is alleged that Guyana could become the richest country in the Western Hemisphere, island state, because of the quantum of oil that they have found, oil and gas. And already there's conversation about monies that have not been accounted for. In a BBC report recently, there was a figure of some few $1 million that was paid 2 years ago and is now appearing in the public coffers. So how do we get governments to be accountable and transparent about those issues they represent us on? And we are having that conversation. And how does the person that we give a contract to discover oil and gas in our waters run out of money and not lose the contract? George, I really don't know where we're going to go, where we're going with this conflict, with this thing.
Well, Brian, these folks out there are listening, so perhaps, and to some extent, we are already going. Let me share some of the thoughts being expressed here. Donna Joseph says, Brian, we are already down that road where transparency is a bad word. So says Donna. Peter Bishop says, Brian has his hands on the pulse. I am sorry for my country. Margaret said a little while ago, I don't know that a political party in Grenada can lead the change. That will have to come from the ground up. And, when she says stuff like that, I imagine that she's referring to people like you and me, who have the intestinal fortitude to speak out. For starters. T.F. Richards says, Mr. Pitt, have you seen or visualized the name of the China Agreement? And I quote here, the Belt Road, unquote. They go cut we ass and run us after.
George, this is not funny, what I'm about to say. But this has surfaced recently. There was an ad in the Chinese media for a particular soap product. You start to laugh, George?
I saw it.
You know what's amazing about this, George? Is that the ad apparently was running in China for a few months. And let me explain to those who have not seen the ad what the ad is. It is about a soap product, and a black guy walks into the room where the Chinese lady, doing her laundry. And he is making a romantic approach to the lady. And what she does, she takes the guy and she pushes him in the washing machine with this detergent, and he pops out looking like a Chinese man. And not until this ad hit the Western press or the whatever, did China apologize before they add. Now, I don't want to blame a whole country by the dealings of one company who might be trying to sell soap, George. But if that ad ran in China for a few months before they took it off, it tells me something.
Mm-hmm. Speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm. So these bilateral arrangements, I don't know whether they're helping us or hurting us.
Well, Donna here says exactly, Brian. Bilateral arrangements can be very serious consequences.
Yes, especially when you have a minister of government saying, "Don't bite the hand that feeds you." Mm-hmm. What does that mean? And where is the head of this person who makes a comment like that? Mm-hmm. That's a person that is representing this George.
And there are a lot more like her. Yeah.
I'm lost for words this morning, George, because I get very emotional when I speak about these things, because there isn't an answer around the corner. And even though Chapter 8 under the judicial provision gives us some hope, and even though we recognize that lawyers are judges, so a lawyer with an opinion today could change if he becomes a judge. That is a chance that we have to take. But beyond that, I don't know where we're going.
Mm-hmm. You're not alone, Brian. You're not alone.
Sorry for the sad note.
Yeah, well, I think that's what has everybody in this country so frustrated. Well, not everybody. Obviously, there are people doing quite well. But there are a lot of people who are absolutely just totally frustrated. Anthony DeRiggs here says, the people who live in many rich oil countries catching the nin because of the crooks who are called leaders. Margaret says, oil for all its potential riches comes with a curse.
Yes, it comes with a curse, but it also comes with some advantage, George? In that report I was talking about out of the BBC, they did talk about the amount of jobs that have already been created by Exxon in Guyana, and the amount of schools that now have programs training people to work in the industry. I'm listening to this guy from the IMF yesterday, and I'm saying to him, I wonder if he will understand what's going on in this region. He's talking about IT training. He is not talking about maybe Grenada should start training some people to get jobs in the oil and gas industry, because it already started in Guyana. And if we find anything in our waters, then we need trained people. Yeah? So maybe we can train some people, let them go to Guyana to work, and by the time we are ready, they could be ready to give us, to be productive in our market. Yeah, George? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I listened to this guy yesterday, and I'm saying to myself, where is he coming? But of course, people will equate my thoughts against somebody who works for the IMF. And let me tell you something. The more we get into these bilateral arrangements, the less important are people like the IMF and the World Bank.
Mm-hmm. But you see, one of the big problems we face is that we here in these developing countries look up to people like the World Bank and the IMF. The IMF and the World Bank, they come into countries like this, and when they come here, we are to listen because they are the IMF and we are the World Bank, and they speak, and that is it.
Yeah.
Therein lies the problem. We don't have the intestinal guts to really pose our questions, share our thoughts with these people. We're still very subservient. You talk about colonialism and whatever. Anyhow.
So what is the World Bank? What is the World Bank? Just quickly, what are they going to do to help us to recover agriculture? What is he proposing? And I didn't hear anything about that. Maybe it's in a document somewhere. I look forward to seeing that document. Sorry, George, go ahead.
Margaret says, also look at what China is doing to the Uyghurs. That should tell all something. Yeah. TF Rich, TF's taking off this morning. TF says the head That person is in St. Mark's. You know, we were talking a little while ago about the hands that feed us. And he says, hence the reason nothing is happening in St. Mark's. Okay. Brian, my friend.
One last point before I leave.
Yeah?
You must have noticed, let me call, I don't know what they are, maybe called telephone lines. Lines being run all across Grenada.
Yes.
By some people that don't look like Grenadians.
Yes, yes.
I understand they're from Guatemala.
Yes.
And, you know, I wonder to myself, these are people climbing poles and running lines. Couldn't there be some arrangement? And by the way, I called the Ministry of Labor on this issue, but they couldn't give me any answers because for whatever reason. That to one person from Guatemala, there could be one person from Grenada working on this contract. And I have not heard, maybe I missed it, any trade union representing laborers, bring this issue to the front, you know, George. Have you?
No.
So again, this idea of transparent governance, are we to assume that some unions are also involved in this process so that they cannot be transparent?
Yeah.
You know, it's a pity, George.
It's a pity, and it gives credence to the concerns being expressed out there that we have lost confidence in our government to governors. We have lost confidence in our churches. We have lost confidence in our police. We have lost confidence in the trade unions. Who's left, Brian? We've lost confidence in the media. Who else is left, Brian? Answer that before you go.
Maybe there's a young guy, a young lady out there who is paying careful attention to what our generation is planning to leave them and will ascend to leadership that will address that particular question because they have all good reason to provide leadership for their generation.
Brian, maybe there's credence to what you're saying, but only last night I heard Beverly Sinclair on We Chat repeating something I've heard this woman say umpteen times about political parties. Do we need political parties? Political parties have us where we are today, Brian. And it's not just here in Grenada. If you listen to We Chat, you'll find out this crap's going on all over the Caribbean. Brian, all over the world. Okay? So the thing is, in the absence of political parties, what do you have, Mr. Pitt?
Are you going to blame political parties, George, or are you going to blame the politicians who get into political parties to make a living? You see, at one point, politics was about service, you know.
Yes.
And public servants was about service, and teachers was about teaching. So when a teacher goes in the classroom, they took responsibility for that child. When a guy goes to work in the public service, he works there according to the rules of the public service until politicians started to move them around because they wanted to stay in power, because politics became a living. They had to send their children to school, they had to pay their mortgage, etc., etc. The question, I think, is when is politics going to going to revert to being something about service? And it speaks to what should be the criteria to run for public office. And I don't know if we will get there anytime soon because the politicians control the electoral process. You know, these guys have a way of getting into everything under the guise of democracy. Yeah? So they will say, if they set up some integrity body, and that integrity body has 8 people on it, and they appoint 5, that is a democratic process that their wishes come forth, you know, because they have 5 votes, and that is democracy. They have abused this thing called democracy, and we've allowed them to do it.
But Brian, I don't know if you heard it, but I have heard that democracy is under fire right now.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Pitt.
You're very welcome,
Thank you,
George.
sir.
Enjoy the weekend. Sorry to have this. You have your head down. I don't like that, George.
No, you know, Brian. Listen, I enjoy what I do. I really love doing this. Not just this program, all the programs that I do. But Brian, when you sit in this chair and have to listen to this day in, day out, you know.
But you know, George, maybe some company in the private sector will have a conscience and say, George Grant, you know, you have an interesting program. Let me see if I can assist you to get back on the airwaves, so that the rest of the people in Grenada who can turn on the radio in the morning, because a lot of us is the radio, can get to hear some of your programs. And I hope there's somebody in the private sector out there with a conscience that will allow that to happen.
Well, you know, I'm glad you brought that up because, first of all, I want to acknowledge the fact that there are a handful, actually not even a full handful, but there's some people out there. You talk about the Hubbards, the Grenlecks, Co-op Bank, you know, these are people who are making it possible for you to sit here and chat with me this morning, okay? But Brian, there are so many others who would not spend a dime anywhere the name George Grant is mentioned because they've been told he's an NB man. Sorry, excuse me, he's an NDC man. Stay away from George.
You know. Just a quick note again, George. There have been business people in this country who have written checks to both political parties.
Yeah.
So I mean, so you don't have to just so you don't advertise on George Grant, but send him some money. You know, you advertise on the other radio stations in Grenada. Nobody has to know what you do, but your conscience will tell you to get the word out so that there could be transparent governance in Grenada.
And something really good happened yesterday that I want to acknowledge. Yesterday morning, we had some issues with the program. And, you know, I was talking about the fact that everybody out there keeps demanding more from the program. But even though since October last year, we had a donate button put up on the website asking for help, hardly any assistance came. But yesterday, I was sitting here and, you know, explaining to the people that it's one thing to complain when there's no audio or the video is not good and this and that. But folks, broadcasting is expensive business.
Yes.
And to do it well, you need to have the resources. Brian, by the end of the day yesterday, I had two people, I'm not going to call their names, make donations. Brian, and these people, they weren't able to give me thousands of dollars, but the little penny halfpenny that they had, Brian, they helped. They helped. And these are the people I so appreciate for help.
Before the end of the year, George, the rest of the people in Grenada will turn their radios on and be able to hear.
Are you prophesying here, Mr. Pitt? You turned pastor now?
I am hoping, George. Have a good weekend, my man. Have a good weekend. Are you going to Bushu on Saturday?
No. You know, no. I'm not going to bourgeois banter. But
I couldn't ask you that question, George.
Are you going?
No.
No. Thanks a lot, BP.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Take care. All right, there you have it, Mr. Brian Pitt. And just a reminder that segment was an excerpt from Friday morning's edition of Good Day Grenada. See the kind of stuff you folks are missing if you can't join us at 9 o'clock on weekday mornings. But never mind, if you can't join us live for the program, it's always up there on Facebook and YouTube. You can go on back when you get home in the afternoon after work. Take a look at your leisure. Now, while you guys were listening, some of you were posting. Mandu Tours says, don't keep Brian out too long. He always comes very, very strong. Yeah, Mandu. That's the reason why we had him rebroadcast this morning. We've also been joined by Eric Stone Mitchell, Fitzroy Adams, and I like this name, ambidextrous chick, Walcott Chinnery. Okay, love the name. Man who goes on to say, I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump, but I'm on board with him when it comes to trade with China. Yeah, Mandu. Ann Thomas says, we go in the wrong way. Wasn't there a Calypso to that effect some time ago? Yeah. Got a good memory, Ann. Fitzroy Adams says, George, this week I heard the IMF telling our Prime Minister about developing agriculture. I've been complaining for years. And maybe they will listen to the IMF. Who are you? Just kidding. Just kidding. Take that the way it was meant. Ann Thomas says, we want people who love Grenada, not politicians who do not have Grenada and Grenadians at heart. Important point. Let's put that on our wish list. And Kipling says, there is transparency in government only among themselves about how to lie to the masses. Notice every one of them, when speaking, is reading. Yeah, Kipling, I think you brought that up sometime during the week. They're all, not all, but very often, prepared texts. Okay, I'm seeing one here for the first time. I haven't had a chance to proofread this before, but I'm going to give it a shot. Mary Campbell says, when a well-known Grenadian legal professional who is a QC sees no problem with the structure and composition of cabinet in relation to parliamentary representatives, no wonder Grenada is in deep. Where is the balance and transparency when cabinet composition is or has 12 or more ministers, but for majority decisions making in Parliament, I guess that should read made in Parliament, which is a check and balance, you only need 8 members voting yes. Good point, Mary. What a shame. What a cow pie covering a face. Democracy is mockery at work. Yeah, we were talking about that. A lot of questions about democracy. Is it what it used to be? Is it on the way out? Food for thought. All right, a number of you have also joined us here. Let's see. These folks may not have posted yet. Cecilia John, Rachel Joseph, Allison Tisha George. They're very quietly watching. Ronnie Gittins, George Peters, Alice Roberts. Hi there, Alice. How are you? Still waiting on a visit. It's been years now since you sat in this chair, isn't it? Victor Cox. You mean you're not out sailing this morning, Mr. Cox? Well. Who else? Sandra Johnson, and I think this is pronounced Paulinus Noel. Yeah, these folks are all with us this morning, but very quietly looking on and listening. Now, you are probably saying to yourself, what happened to that dizzy man there? He forget them editorial and thing? No, you're going to hear the editorials. We're going to get to the editorials in just a wee bit. I also want to remind you that coming up at the top of the hour, it's now 10:30, coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to be getting into a discussion on LIAT. That is captioned on the website as, let me see here, some frank talk about LIAT. Huh? And my guest will be Mr. James Lynch, who's an aviation consultant, a former pilot with LIAT. Mr. Siddiqui Sylvester, who's a travel agent here. He runs Astral Travel downtown. We're also going to be joined by Mr. Terry Forrester, who is a former employee at LIAT. And who else? Am I leaving out anybody? Yeah, I mentioned to you that we were hoping to have Jerry George, but I haven't heard from Jerry, so I imagine he's not going to be able to make it. Jerry is up there in Florida. But I also want to share with you, by the way, it just popped in here. You heard Brian and me talking about the Boujou show, Boujou Banton. Did you guys go? I haven't had the time this morning. You know, I imagine there'd be a lot of stuff on Facebook about the show last night. Unfortunately, I have not had the time to run through Facebook this morning, so I don't know. But I certainly would be interested in finding out how things went. And I have very little doubt that there was a huge crowd down there. And one of the reasons for that is that I understand a lot of people from other countries flew in to Grenada to take part in that show. Yeah? One posting I did see on Facebook, and that I think was yesterday or the day before, was the aircraft. It's a corporate jet, a Gulfstream, which brought Mr. Banton in. Oh my gosh. You know, I bet a lot of people who travel on LIAT they're hoping that someday they may have access to that level of transportation. Corporate jet. Tuk, tuk, tuk. Okay, so let me see. That's going to do it for the time being. And just before I get to the segment on LIAT this morning, I'm going to play you an excerpt from Thursday night's edition of MECRE Chat, where there was also a discussion about LIAT. But right now, let's take a little break, and we'll come back with the editorials.
Boy, they gonna fly with Kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, Kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, you can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call Grenada. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
Grenada, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company. company. Tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive. Motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary. Public liability. Professional indemnity. Directors liability. And wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Alrighty, folks, the editorial which appeared in this past week's edition of Grenada Advocate is captioned, Get Prepared. The month of June signals the beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season. However, when it comes to being prepared, one can never be too thorough or too early. Therefore, it would be wise for people to start taking stock of their vulnerabilities and any apparent risks from now and make the appropriate adjustments. All right? Earlier last month, widespread showers may have caught many off guard, but they should also serve as a warning. Homeowners should examine their properties for weaknesses to water and moisture, sealing wherever necessary, and gutters should be mended, cleared, and fastened securely to homes to divert any heavy downpours. Not only homes, but vehicles should be checked for safety as well. Take care that the treads on tires are not worn down, the wipers are functional, and that the brake system is in good working condition. All these steps can mean the difference between a safe journey home and a major accident on slick roads. It would be wise for people to accumulate over a period of time the foodstuff that they would be required to have on a hurricane checklist, instead of looking to purchase necessities at the last minute. So, hello there. Hang on there for just a wee bit. Hang on there for just a wee bit. Hang on there. Yeah. Teleprompter gone kaput. Yeah. It would be wise for people to accumulate over a period of time the foodstuff that would be required for a hurricane checklist, instead of looking to purchase necessities at the last minute. So, for the remainder of May, people should deliberately put aside a couple of items each week. This way may even prove more economical, as there would be more time to shop around for bargains. Another area where many persons fall down, and which can and should be addressed prior to the start of June, is the matter of insuring property. Home and business structures should be insured to cover any possible damage which can result from weather systems, either directly or indirectly, including damage caused by flooding and fire. While Grenadians have been spared the ravages of a serious hurricane in recent years, lessons can be learned from house fires which leave uninsured homeowners reeling from loss with little prospect of rebuilding. Personal possessions, too, should be protected. Private safes or safety deposit boxes at commercial banks can keep important documents like deeds, wills, or even jewelry in good condition and damage-free. For after a storm or a hurricane, it is easier to pick up the pieces and move on if you do not have to worry about recovering the cost of lost possessions or damaged property. In the end, it all comes down to being prepared prepared as possible. And in this, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency has provided a good example. Grenadians and our Caribbean neighbors should take a leaf out of that organization's book and take hurricane preparedness more seriously. Traditionally, it has been routine to see hundreds of people lined up within hours of an approaching system to buy food, sheets of wood, or other emergency material. This type of behavior must be improved upon. As a Caribbean people, our actions should reflect more than a fleeting rush to ride out a storm. For us in the region, it should be a way of life. Good advice there from this past week's edition of the Grenada Advocate, which, by the way, came out on Wednesday of this past week. Okie doke. Hold on a sec. Claude Pudna is joining us, saying good morning and sending happy Mother's Day greetings to everyone. Alrighty, folks. Break time, and then we will get to the new today.
My name is Jennifer James, and I've been making confectionaries for the past 7 years. Growing up as a little girl, I always wanted to make these little things. Fudge, sugar cake, tamarind ball, these little things. I read something actually, and it said that tamarind itself is very good because it eliminates fat from the liver. You get the mature tamarind and you crack it, you shell it out. I would add a little baking soda, some spices. I would leave it to rest probably for about 2 hours and then add my sugar and just start kneading. I usually knead it hard enough so that I can roll it. When I finish roll it, I will paste it with the actual white or brown sugar, and you have a nice tamarind ball. I have been providing food fare with tamarind ball about 6 years now. I started producing tamarind ball to sell for the school children. I thought I could advance somewhere. So I went to food fair and I asked one of the sales persons there if they would be interested in selling my tamarind ball. And she told me yes. She told me to bring 20 packets to start with. It was really a joy for me because I wanted to extend on my little business. My name is Jennifer James, and I work with the food fair to provide you with tamarind balls.
And the editorial which appeared in this past Friday's edition of The New Today is captioned, "The St. Mark Shrimp Project." What has gone wrong with the multi-million-dollar shrimp project that was earmarked for the parish of St. Mark? The New Today is forced to ask the question in light of documents circulating from one Leo Ford, whose address is Panama City in Panama, in which the gentleman is claiming $2.4 million from the Keith Mitchell ruling New National Party administration, an outstanding payment for consultancy work done on the project. Grenadians may recall that there was an impressive launch for the shrimp project by the newly created Grenada Sustainable Aquaculture Limited a few days before the March 13, 2018 general election, which was attended by, among others, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, MP for the area Dr. Clarence Modeste Kerwin, and the man in charge of fisheries in St. John, MP Alvin Dabrio. In recent weeks, the Prime Minister hinted that an investigation will be carried out into the failed shrimp project since monies were collected, and that help is being sought regionally and internationally to get to the bottom of the issue. There are unconfirmed reports that about $15 million were collected for the St. Mark Shrimp Project from about 50 to 55 persons who contributed monies in exchange for obtaining a Grenada passport through the Citizenship by Investment scheme. If correct, where was this money deposited, and who had control and oversight over it? Did anyone get passports from this so far failed project? The New Today was made aware of the involvement of one Soren Dawodi as the founder and executive director of GSA, and Manfred Sofing as the operational manager to get the project off the ground. Absolutely nothing is being heard from Mr. Dawodi, and no one knows if he is still associated with the project. However, what is making the rounds is the following demand letter dated January 21st, 2019, from one Leo Ford that is addressed to the newly installed CEO of the local agency involved in spearheading the sale of our passports. And I quote, Mr. Thomas Anthony, Chief Executive Officer, CBIC, Grenada, sent via email. Dear Mr. Anthony, letter of demand, outstanding payment. I am writing in reference to the consultancy services agreement regarding Grenada Sustainable Aquaculture Limited, dated February 1st, 2016, and payment not being received. This lack of payment is due to the actions of the government of Grenada and its agents. I demand full payment of the outstanding amount within 15 days from the date of this letter, February 4th, 2019. The amount due is $2,450,000 US. Alternatively, and without prejudice to my rights and full recovery of the debt, I am prepared to accept the amount of $1.45 million as full payment and final settlement of the debt if paid within 7 days from the date of this letter, or accept installments of $100,000 per month until the debt is fully paid off. The first installment to be paid on January 30th, 2019, and thereafter on the first working day of every month until the debt is fully paid. If this matter is not resolved by the time specified above, I reserve the right to commence legal proceedings to recover the debt listed above, including the additional debt for the duration, December 31st, 2025, of the consultancy services agreement, without further notice to you, and this letter may be tendered in court as evidence of your failure to pay. Legal action may result in you having to pay legal costs, damages, and interest, and could impact on the government of Grenada's credit rating. Should you wish to contact me, please use gsacreditor@gmail.com. Yours sincerely, Leo Ford, GSA Creditor. That letter was copied to Mr. Darshan Ramdani, the Attorney General, Annette Henry, the Registrar, Alana Twum Barama, the Registrar, Alana Twum Barana, the Registrar, Yolan Bain Hosford, Ronald Theodore, Alvin Dabrio, Clarice Modeste, Dennis Antoine, Angus Friday, and Oleg Fire. Now, this is quite an astounding letter, says the New Today, that was also sent to the attention of 4 persons who sit in Grenada's cabinet, and 3 of our ambassadors, including the infamous Oleg Fire, who is assigned to Russia, but is allegedly based in Miami, in the United States, and not Moscow or some other city in Europe. The NNP had been promoting the project as a major game changer in the lives of the people of St. Mark, which is known to be one of the most depressed on the island in terms of employment opportunities. The Government Information Service said, among other things, back in 2017, and I quote here, dubbed the Zero Water Exchange Sustainable Organic Shrimp Farm, the project will specialize in the production of shrimp in a socially and environmentally friendly manner. That is, free of antibiotics, chemical additives, and enzymes. High-tech, high-quality shrimp production will occur under the enclosed recirculating aquaculture system, also known as RAS, that will eliminate problems caused by elements such as the weather and various forms of diseases. Manfred Sofing, GSA's operational manager, says there are many opportunities available to Grenadians as employment will be drawn from the local community and persons will be trained in the specialized technology. We intend to employ locally as many persons as possible, says Mr. Sofring. With the auspices of the chief scientist, we will train workers to run this operation, which will employ new and revolutionary technologies for raising shrimp. Some of the employees, by virtue of qualifications, will have an opportunity to secure a scholarship, attend university, and attain further qualification in the subject field. Parliamentary Representative for St. Mark, Honorable Clarice Modeste Kerwin, expressed her excitement over the project, stating that the parish had been praying for a break like this for a long time. Now there is rejoicing. We have been waiting for something like that, Kerwin said. The scripture says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. Our wait has paid off. The strength of people of St. Mark, our strength, is being renewed by this project that is being launched today, said the MP and Minister for Tourism. Minister Modeste Kerwin considers the project to be a divine intervention because of the job opportunities that will come to St. Mark. I was told that we would start out with 2 plants for shrimp production, and I have been assured that each one would employ about 75 people. She stated those words to applause. Imagine, with a small population, employing 150 people. It was music to my ears, said the minister, that most of the labor would come from St. Mark. GSA says the project will be a model for the Caribbean and the rest of the world. And due to the technology used, the quality of water in St. Mark will produce a sweeter shrimp that will be in high demand in countries such as the United States and Canada. The company plans to build and operate 1 complete barn that it expects to have up and running by the end of the year. Construction of additional barns is planned for 2018. The New Today has an uneasy feeling that the so-called shrimp project, earmarked for St. Mark's, was another sham in a similar manner in which those involved in the failed First International Bank of Grenada, FIBG, and the infamous Van Brink were allowed to operate and pilfer monies from depositors during the 1995 to 2003 period. A serious forensic investigation into the millions allegedly collected by those behind the shrimp project might give some kind of lead into whether some of the monies were not actually used to finance the 2018 election campaign of the ruling party. The blame game and finger pointing have already begun, with one senior minister telling a party supporter that the Mitchell administration had to run from GSA since one of the major personnel was found out to be a major player in the business of money laundering. This newspaper is fearful that the so-called investigation that was alluded to by PM Mitchell will end up similar to the Cheltenham briefcase inquiry, in which nothing happened. And the main players will never take to the stand to give any evidence about the allegedly missing millions of dollars. Pilgrims, that is the editorial which appeared in this past Friday's edition of the New Today. Let me take a little break, and we will be right back.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Alrighty, folks. 2 minutes to the hour. Well, I'll tell you what. There he is, Mr. Sylvester. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, definitely hearing you loud and clear.
Aha, okay. Mr. Sylvester is joining us, and let me see if I can pull him up here. There he is. How are you, sir?
Fair to fine. Fair to fine.
Fair to fine. Fair to middling. Siddiqui, it's nice to see you, and we're getting started a little bit early because we're still expected to be joined by Mr. Terry Forrester. He should be popping in here anytime now. And have you ever heard of a gentleman by the name of Mr. James Lynch?
No, can't say so.
James is a Caribbean aviation consultant. If I'm not mistaken, he's based in Antigua. We're going to verify that once he shows up. But he's also a former LIAT pilot. And apparently he was also the secretary of the LIALPA. That's the Leeward Islands Air Transport Airline Pilots Association or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. There he is. There he is. Hold on a sec. Let's make sure that we have everybody. Yeah. There they are. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, James. How are you?
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I was just explaining to Siddiqui Sylvester, the gentleman sharing the screen there with you, who you are. Siddiqui, say good morning to James. James, say good morning to Siddiqui.
Morning, James. Face looks familiar now.
James.
But I haven't been in Grenada for at least 25, 30 years.
Okay.
James, he gets around a lot. He's a travel agent, spends a lot of time traveling, so he's probably bumped into you somewhere. By the way, where are you, James?
I am located in a town called Sutton, which is 2 hours drive north of Toronto.
Okay. And I thought it might have been Antigua anyhow, but you are a Barbadian, right?
Yeah, I'm from Barbados, and I also have Antiguan citizenship.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. I do expect that we're going to be joined in a short while by Mr. Terry Forrester. But until he gets here, I think we can get started with a little conversation. You are both very, very familiar with LIAT. I mean, they've been headliners now for several weeks. And Siddiqui, I'm going to get to you in just a wee bit, but James, I want you to start by telling me about your past involvement with LIAT.
My past what?
Past involvement with LIAT.
I've had a bit of a rough aviation career. I started out training in Canada, and when I went back home to Barbados, I couldn't get a job with any airline. So after about 5 years, certain events happened, which got me a job with a charter company called Tropic Air. This is way back. We're talking before 1980. And I flew for Tropic Air, quite abusive hours and abusive requirements. So I flew for Tropic Air for 2 years. And then a Canadian guy, Bob Dale, bought 50% or 51% of Tropic Air. And when he moved in, he brought a DC-3 full of pilots with him. And before we knew what was going on, he fired all of the local pilots, every last one of them. The only one that was left was Phil Mayer, who was an English guy. And so I got the boot from Tropic Air for no reason whatsoever. I didn't do anything. Just that he wanted to replace all of the local pilots with Canadian pilots. It made no sense to me because he would have had to pay them Canadian salaries, provide them with house and car and all the rest of it. Anyway, I went off looking for a job, and eventually I passed through Frank DeLeo's office at Carib Aviation in Antigua, and Frank welcomed me in. Frank gave me a job. He said, look, it's only 3 months, but the way my bookings go, February, March, April is what I can offer you, because the 1st of May every year, my bookings go to zero. I have no flights whatsoever. So I took the job, and he used those 3 months as a way to evaluate me as an employee. And at the end of the 3 months, he actually himself walked me over to Arthur Foster at LIAT, who was the managing director. And he walked me into LIAT. I got a job at LIAT. I spent 16 years at LIAT. The first 5 years was for Island Air, flying the Islanders, and then the Trilanders, and then the Grenada for the Montserrat government. At that point in time, the union insisted that all of us be under the union. So it all became one. Eventually they got rid of the Islanders. They got rid of the Twin Otters as well, eventually. But afterwards, I found out that the reason they got rid of the Twin Otters was because they were charging some of the expenses for the Twin Otters, some of the expenses for the Avros to the Twin Otters. So it was a false economy. The Twin Otters, in fact, were doing a very good job. They could get into the places the Avros could not get into. And who knows, maybe they were doing the same thing with the Islanders too. So that was pretty much what happened. 1995, my doctor in Antigua told me I needed a cataract operation. So off I went to Canada to get a cataract operation. And at the end of the operation, he had actually basically already finished it. And he said, "Oh." And you know what "oh" means? What had happened was that a vein in the back of the eye had burst and filled up the cavity with blood. And I was pretty sure by then that the end of my flying career was there. So I moved in a different direction from then, and but basically that was the end of my flying career. But I know too many people in aviation, and I have too many qualifications, and I'm too smart, and I'm too interested in life to just go and get a job packing shelves or something. So I have maintained a very strong interest in aviation, and especially in Caribbean aviation, from that day to this.
All right.
I did start out as an air traffic controller in Barbados for 2 years. So I have quite a range of experience, knowledge.
And aviation.
Of course, when you've been in a specific small area and qualification for that long, you hear a lot of stuff. And after a while, you get to know what has basis in fact and what does not. And there's a lot of bullshitters out here, let me tell you.
Okay. Siddiqui, jump in. You've been watching LIAT. You know the importance of LIAT to Grenada, and over the years you've been watching the concerns that the Grenadian people have about the service. Let me hear your findings in particular.
Well, in essence, I think that LIAT is an essential component of Caribbean life. Without a LIAT, I can't see many things happening in the Caribbean. Unfortunately, we're not joined by land, so we have to travel to different countries by air. That being said, over the years, there are many private enterprises that have been engaged in providing air services to Caribbean residents. Air Caribbean, EC Express, CaribJet, Carib Express, you name them, Helen Air, so forth, so on. Unfortunately, they've all packed up, right? In my opinion, LIAT has survived because it is essential for the people of the Caribbean and the governments to ensure that we have some form of movement between the islands in the Caribbean. That being said, again, Trinidad has what, 1 million or so population, Barbados 250,000. For the smaller countries, Tortola, BVI, Grenada, some of the smaller countries that LIAT serves, they don't have a very large population base. So when it comes to moving people and people having the ability to move consistently, it's not like Trinidad or Barbados or Guyana, for example, right? But they still have to move people between the smaller territories, whether it's Tortola, BVI, as I said, Grenada, St. Vincent, Dominica, right? LIAT has tried many different ways of and changing CEOs, boards of directors. They have not been successful. And it is not solely, I think, because they have not tried, but to me, it's a complex situation that most of these carriers have faced in the Caribbean. Economies of scale. You purchasing a few aircraft, when you want to buy parts, it's a few parts. The cost of doing business is quite different to, say, an American Airlines or some other major company, Virgin or British Airways, so forth, so on. And they need to follow or find a model whereby, as I think is being proposed now, whereby if you need the flight, then you have to make a contribution to ensure that the flight breaks even. Now, there's one thing that over the years I have proposed, and I don't know why it hasn't been done. As I say, if you live in Bridgetown, for example, and you're going to, say, Spicetown or wherever, or you live in St. George's in Grenada and you're going to Grenada, a bus can leave practically empty, and by the time you get to where you go, you pick up a number of persons on the road and you cover the expenses of your trip. However, you can't do that. You leave Antigua and you're going to Barbados, that's it. No stops, so you can't pick up anyone in the air. However, it is essential that the aircraft fills as many seats as possible. So the proposal was for LIAT to do a last-minute seat sale. So 1 hour before the flight is about to depart, you basically check in your people, no one's on standby, you close off, and then you offer a base fare, including, of course, with the departure taxes, etc., to someone who shows up. And the return, of course, will have to be at whatever price is available, because you're not getting the return at that base fare or that basic fare. You're getting it at whatever is available for when you want to come back, simply because you must have a return ticket to travel, say, from Antigua to Barbados or Grenada to Tortola or wherever you're going. That way, you present opportunities for persons who want to travel at the last minute.
Okay.
To then, however, let me just finish this statement. A person, however, who has an appointment wouldn't take that chance, simply because if you don't have a confirmed flight, you miss your appointment. But that's one way, in my opinion, of raising revenue that LIAT should be looking at. There are other things I would like to say, but continue.
All right. Before we continue, I'd like to, first of all, welcome Terry Forrester. He's joining us here right now. Terry is a politician. He's also a very, very vocal social advocate. And I'm going to let Terry jump in here in just a wee bit. But first of all, James, I want you to respond to what Siddiqui was saying a few minutes ago.
You are absolutely correct in that LIAT is not the same business model as American Airlines or even smaller airlines in the US or the developed countries. LIAT is a unique model, but it does have some commonalities. One is that you cannot operate an airline based on walking around with a hat begging for money, like Mr. Gonzalez has done. Where you run an airline properly is by proper fares and proper revenue earning. If LIAT is going from Antigua to St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, and normally they don't make enough fares to reach for the passengers who are going to Grenada. Then you increase the fares to Grenada. Or you go to the government of Grenada and say, listen, you need to subsidize the fares or it's not even breaking even. You don't go around begging for money, even at a political level, to run a business or to run an airline. Who runs a business that way? I mean, if you run in a business doing some trucking and you have a regular route to carry some stuff, you start doing it and then you beg for money along the way, or you make sure that you stop at every shop that you might service and tell them, listen, if you want service, you got to pay me some money now. What the politicians in the Caribbean are doing right now is nothing less than mob rule. There are elected dictators who get into politics purely for the benefit of power and money. And I think it is a shame that our people, and I'm not making racial overtones in any way. What we are making here are African dictators out of Caribbean people. People get into politics purely for the money, for the power.
All right. We have a politician sitting here, so this is a good opportunity.
Oh, that's fine. I'm willing to talk with them, but what I talk is reality.
Hold on. I just want to bring him, James, I just want to bring him in and get his response. Terry, you're here, and what this gentleman is saying. Let's hear your verdict.
Well, very pleasant good morning to you, James.
Morning, sir.
And very pleasant good morning to mothers all over Grenada and throughout the entire Caribbean region. I want to wish them all a very happy Mother's Day. James, you have made a very important point there. We are seeing dictatorship throughout the region over and over, and it is not very enchanting at all. Our Caribbean people, unfortunately, are now subjected to political dictatorship in most of the islands, and it's most unfortunate. However, the discussion today is on LIAT, and recently I've been sounding a note as to how LIAT can raise revenue and for the people of the Caribbean to participate. I do not fully share the view that politicians in the region should continuously take taxpayers' money and plow it into a private entity. I also believe that the people of the region must show their willingness to contribute or to invest in what is theirs, what is ours. LIAT is family. LIAT is like Caribbean cricket. LIAT represents CSME. LIAT represents CARICOM. And if we, the people of the Caribbean, don't step forward to contribute in some meaningful way towards Caribbean development and integration, then we will be all sadly missed along the route. I believe, and I have proposed over the last few weeks, that, for example, the 5 shareholder governments in the region, they each have access or control over the water companies. These water companies are nationalized. For example, in Grenada's case, our National Water and Sewage Authority, the water company, has a minimum of just about 70,000 accounts. And if we knock off 20,000 for persons who are not interested in investing or they are unable, whatever the case may be, but let's work with 50,000. And if we work with 50,000 accounts in most of the islands, use Grenada's case, I was proposing $100 investment through such an entity, simply because they have an accounting system already in place. There is an account going, everybody drinks water, everybody uses water. So it's an easy system. It can also be worked via electricity companies. But let's stick with the water companies because government can easily pass legislation and get it going.
So let's reduce it now from $100 US to $100 EC investment by account holders. 50,000 by $100 will yield 5 million EC dollars right away. What would the client get back in return? LIAT must make a commitment to contribute to that investment 300%. It sounds outrageous, but the fact of the matter is, when you hear the proposal through, you would realize that there is a win-win situation, not just for LIAT, but for the people of the Caribbean. Because the people of the Caribbean have supported LIAT in the good times, the bad times, and it's about time that the people of the Caribbean get back something from LIAT. But at the same time, they will be contributing towards LIAT's success.
All right.
So, you invest 100 EC dollars through your water account. The water company will be obligated to give you a voucher or MCO, call it whatever document you wish. It's like a bond document. And that will indicate that you are now entitled to 300%. But there's a big but. You're not going to get it back in cash from LIAT as an investment. You will get it back in services. You can use it to pay for cargo, to pay for quick pack, to pay for baggage, or even your travel ticket. But all of these services will be subject to load. And it will be valid for a minimum of 3 years. You can transfer it to family, friends, whosoever you wish. The government must also agree that that bond document can also be used to pay government taxes by individuals, or to even pay the said water rates, or may even be able to use it in supermarkets. The thinking behind it is that there will be a win-win situation for the Caribbean people and for LIAT. And if this is replicated in at least 5 shareholder governments, you are raising in a one-off shot 25 million EC dollars right away, within a matter of 30 days. And if this is replicated every year or 2 years, there is a win-win situation for both parties.
All right, let me hear your take on this, James, because I understand that you too have made a proposal to the Prime Minister of Barbados.
Well, responding to the gentleman's suggestion.
James, keep your head up. We need to see that face of yours. Thank you very much.
Responding to the gentleman's proposal, basically what he's suggesting is just putting more taxes on top of the people who are paying for the services. They're already paying departure tax, security tax, you name them. This is a list of about 7 or 8 different taxes that are loaded onto them now. And whether they can pay for something else with it or not, they're being taxed. They have to pull money from their pocket. So I can't say I agree with that approach. The approach I advocate is the same approach that I sent a 20-page document to Prime Minister Motley last year, June, bearing in mind that she was elected in late April or early May. The 20-page document covered all of her aviation problems, not only with LIAT, but also with, she has a number of aviation problems in Barbados. Trans-Island Air through 2000, Executive Air, which are 2 quite rogue companies. But on LIAT, I believe that I covered about 10 pages. Basically, I laid out, because I don't expect everybody to know what I know. So I laid out basically what the problem is, and then provided some suggestions. The suggestions I have provided to everybody that I spoke to about this is to stop this fooling around, stop this political nonsense, stop this layman approach where you cast around, you look for anybody who has money and beg them for it. That's not a business approach. The business approach is to pull the parasites out of LIAT's backside, install professionals, and let the professionals turn LIAT around, break even, and then get to a point where LIAT is providing revenue to the treasuries. LIAT can provide revenue. I'll give you two statistics. 5 years ago, LIAT was carrying 3,000 people a year. I'm sorry, 3 million people a year. Right now, LIAT is down to 1.5 million a year. What you have to ask yourself, why is that? Because the taxes and the fees are at a point where people simply cannot afford to travel anymore. And this is a closed circle where less people travel, so LIAT has less money. So the government puts on more taxes, LIAT puts on more fees, and costs go up, and people can't afford to travel. More people can't afford to travel, and the number of people traveling go down. It's a closed cycle. I have fixed suggestions about what to do with LIAT because I'm a professional. I am an aviation professional. I know how things are supposed to happen. And management in LIAT are all, when I say management, the executive, the CEO and the board are all amateurs. They know nothing about aviation. The current CEO came to my attention when she was a bookkeeper at Ammon Resorts in Barbados. Either she got fired or she left and she went to looking for work elsewhere. I will never say the person's name, but she did an interview with a person in tourism marketing, and he has provided me with the information that when he did the interview, she could not even prove that she had her accounting qualifications. There's a lot of stuff she didn't know what he was talking about. So he didn't give her the job. So apparently she ran back to her friend Gene Holder, chairman of LIAT. Gene Holder gave her a job as CFO of LIAT. Now, bearing in mind that LIAT does not publish in public its annual accounts and has not for the last 40 or 50 years, when she does the accounts or when she oversees the accounts of LIAT, there's no danger anybody going to see them. So there's no danger for her to have the CFO position. So now comes a year or later or 2 years later, and guess what? The CEO position is available, and guess what? She's qualified for that too somehow.
All right, James, let me jump in here for a minute. You know, LIAT's management has been blamed for a lot of the problems it's having.
No. The stuff that I have seen.
Hold on. Generally speaking, I mean, you travel around the Caribbean, everybody's talking about poor management within LIAT. But let me ask you this. Poor management, shouldn't you be holding the government, or excuse me, the shareholders of the company responsible for the poor management? Or am I missing something here?
That is exactly what I'm doing. I'm holding them responsible, but I have to say why. Poor management, abysmal management, not even poor, abysmal. You take friends of friends, or you take people who have done you political favors, people who know nothing about aviation whatsoever. They couldn't tell you what a gallon of slipstream looks like. No idea. They know nothing about aviation.
All right, Terry, you wanted to...
James.
Hold on a sec. Before we go any further, let me say we only have about half an hour left, so please try and keep your responses precise. Go ahead, Terry.
James, first of all, I want to respond to your comment with respect to my presentation. And you indicated that my proposal will create more taxes. Nowhere in the world I know of anyone making an investment and getting 300% return on it. You invest, as I said, $100 EC, you get back 300%. So you get a voucher saying, no, you have $400, which you can use for services which LIAT provides. on a subject to load basis. Now, I agree with the points that you have made about taxes, because the taxes have created a stranglehold for LIAT and it is choking LIAT. I agree with your comments with respect to management. I don't have any evidence to substantiate what you have just indicated, but I believe that there is a need for review of the management structure. But if the people of the Caribbean, and certainly LIAT cannot go out on the international market or anywhere to raise another loan. LIAT does not have the capacity so to do. The governments cannot afford to continue pumping money into LIAT. So we, the Caribbean people, must invest in LIAT, even with $100 EC, and get back a substantial return on our investment, which we can use to purchase LIAT products and other services.
All right, Terry, let me ask you this. You mentioned a 300% return on investment.
On that $100.
Terry, in this environment we live in here today, when somebody comes to you with that kind of proposal, the first word that comes to you is scam.
Well, George, there is no scam in this, simply because it is subject to load. Now, if you invest $100 EC via NAWASA for LIAT, and you can get $300 in value back, so it means, therefore, that your coupon value is now $400. You can use that to pay your said water rates. You can use it to pay government taxes. You can use it in the supermarket or elsewhere. It is only redeemed by that entity via LIAT products.
All right. Margaret in New York says, nice proposal, Terry, but will the shareholders be able to hold the board accountable? Will the governments still appoint board of directors?
Well, that's another issue. I believe LIAT is too highly politicized at the board, executive, and even management levels. And James has alluded to it correctly. There's too much politics in LIAT.
Let me get back to Siddiqui. Bring him in here very quickly. Siddiqui, you're listening. What's going through your mind?
I've listened to the comments, and unfortunately, when it comes to the taxes, right? I mean, you say, I have agonized over this, but I've also looked at other carriers and other airports. What does it take to run an international airport or an airport per se? You have a screening system that you have to go through. How does it come? Is it a gift? How is it maintained? Is there a cost to that? You have an airport to maintain. You have things to make. You have the airport strip. You have improvement. As a matter of fact, I think the Guyanese government just added a new tax for airport improvement. Could these islands continue to maintain these airports with the requisite standards without having adequate taxes? When you look at Miami and you look at American Airlines going into Miami and the taxes on a ticket into Miami compared to the it is more.
Can I say something? I know this for sure in Barbados, and I'm sure it's pretty much the same in the other islands and in Miami, New York, and everywhere else. An airport is not self-sustaining. An airport is many of the expenses are paid for by rents. When you go into the departure lounge and you see all those fancy shops in there.
Great,
excellent.
Well,
in Barbados, for sure, I know for a fact, because my cousin had one, that when the rent is decided by a particular store on the airport, it bid for it.
Yep.
The store has to bid for it.
Yep.
So the airport gets a fantastic amount of revenue out of rents. Do you remember also the airlines pay rents for use of the airport? And then the aircraft pay landing fees, and so on and so on. So an airport is not just a building in the middle of the sand. All right. Just want to stick that in there.
All right, continue.
I totally agree with you. And what I'm saying is that in terms of these small islands, Grenada, how many concessionary places you have, right? Versus Trinidad, where you have more. right? Or an Antigua or a Dominica. So you have to look at all of these factors. But as I say, the bottom line in this discussion, George, as far as I'm concerned, and gentlemen, is what does it take for LIAT to operate from Antigua to Guyana, return, whatever it is, on whatever schedule that can sustain it? We have to look into, of course, all the things you talked about, whether it is involvement, the personnel, whether they have the capability of running LIAT, etc. But the bottom line is, what does it take to make LIAT break even and make a profit?
All right.
And if we don't look at that, then we can't go anyway.
Siddiqui, Margaret in New York says, nobody is denying that it costs to run an airport. The question is, how much? The taxes are way too high.
I don't agree with that.
Well, when you do the analysis and you find out that in some cases the taxes are 1.5 times the cost of the fare, then taxes are too high. Taxes should be a percentage of the fare and not over 100%.
What does it take to run the airport? Not Trinidad. The taxes in Trinidad is more than the taxes out of Grenada, for example.
I've seen 3 or 4 different analyses of where people go through the fares, and they point out that when you compare the fare to the taxes and fees, the taxes and fees are far more than the fare. Far more.
I agree. And as I said, I personally have done a breakdown of the taxes on a fare Port of Spain, Grenada, Port of Spain, or Grenada, Port of Spain, Grenada, and I will tell you that the taxes out of Port of Spain, where they have many more concessionary businesses that can contribute to the running of the airport, is more than out of Grenada, for example.
All right. Margaret says the problem is that governments have no novel ideas for generating revenues, so they're taxing people to death to their own detriment. Another comment here from Lincoln Depredine, and this should put a smile on your face, James. Lincoln says he's voting to make James LIAT's CEO. I get the sense, based on his comments, he'll quickly solve LIAT's many problems. You want his email address, James?
As much as I know from 30, 40 years in even 50 years around aviation, I do not have the necessary knowledge. I would accept a position as chairman. I would not anything to get that idiot Gene Holder kicked out of there. But the person that you need is what is known as a turnaround artist. This is somebody who has global experience with perhaps 15, 20, 25 different airlines. And this is what he does. He goes in and he takes command and he fixes the problem. He turns it around to break even, and then he provides the foresight. He provides the long-range vision to put the airline in a profitable situation. And if you want him to hang around, that's fine. If you don't want it to hang around, that's fine too.
All right.
I know some of these people, but allowing politicians and fools to run what is an extremely technical business is not the right way to go. There are more things there are more things to be done than what Reefer Jones can think up.
All right. In a nutshell, James, get governments out of the picture?
Get governments out of the picture. Take the parasites out of LIAT. I'm sorry, I call them parasites nowadays because that's what they have become in LIAT.
All right. Now, folks, like I mentioned, we only have about 20 minutes left, and there's more ground that I'd like to cover. Let's talk about other concerns about the way forward. Where do we go from here? There's talk about Richard Branson having some interest in the carrier. Do you want to see that happen? Should the airline be shut down and restarted? What should happen, James?
My opinion, I have written to Richard Branson about this, and I gave him advice, free advice. I told Richard Branson, if you're going to have anything to do with LIAT, buy the whole damn thing and pull all of the political appointees out of it, and you run it like you know it's an airline is supposed to be run. Don't allow yourselves to be tagged with all kinds of ropes and strings and threads with politicians and other people trying to tell you what to do with LIAT, because they're going to pull you down the drain. They're going to pull you down the sewer, and that will be the end of all the money you put into it. I found out later he's only putting $7 million US into it, but still, he didn't get there. He didn't get rich by giving it away.
All right, let me hear your reaction, Terry.
It is most unfortunate in this 21st century that Caribbean people, we still have to be dependent on foreign investors to bail us out of much necessary entities in the region. I maintain if we as a people do not continue to make sacrifices for what we need to build and strengthen in the region, we will be saying the same thing for the next 20 generations to come. The people of the Caribbean must step up. Last night, Grenadians were paying $250 EC for a couple hours show by Buju Banton. Some were paying $500 for a VIP booth. What is $100 EC to contribute via your water company, and you are getting $300 back in investment? It is not a freebie. It is an investment that you're getting a major return on, which you can use via LIAT products on a standby subject to load basis. And it's valid for 3 years. You can add or tag all the other details of the policy arrangement of that investment. We as a people in the region must step up and not allow foreign investors to just come and grab up the hog and go with it. LIAT is here to stay. There is no question about it whatsoever. It is here to stay. We just have to ensure as a people that we demand proper management. We demand of our governments to ease off on the taxes, which is a stranglehold upon LIAT, and to make sure, as James indicated, proper management structures are put in place.
Terry,
ease off on the political manipulation of LIAT.
Terry, I've heard those demands being made for years, Terry.
Well,
for
something has to happen. Something has to give.
When? Because, I mean, look at where we are, in the same situation, if not in deeper doo-doo right now.
Something has to give.
There's even talk about shutting down the damn airline.
Unfortunately, I've heard that. And unfortunately, I've heard Prime Minister of St. Vincent mention that he wasn't even aware of talks being held with Richard Branson. It shows that there is...
Our Minister of Trade said the same thing here in a post-cabinet briefing.
Precisely. So it shows that there isn't any unity within the said shareholder governments. Get the politics out of LIAT, as James indicated.
Exactly. That's
okay, but who is going to do it? The said politicians have to agree to do it. The people of the Caribbean must now rise up and demand of the governments that they get out of LIAT, commercialize LIAT as it ought to be commercialized, and step back. Ease off on the taxes, give us the opportunity.
I have something to say on that exact point.
Say again, James. We missed the first part. Say again.
Yeah, I have a pin to stick on that exact point there. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent, it has come to my attention, whether it is true or not, but it has come to my attention that the Prime Minister of St. Vincent now owns a majority of the new airline One Caribbean, which is based in St. Vincent. And not only that, but he raced the AOC, the certificate, through the ECA, East Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, and that the airline is already running schedules from St. Vincent to Tortola. Now, this kind of schedule is unheard of previously in the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean. Unheard of. But he has used his privilege and position and money to set up his own airline. Not only that, the second airline in St. Vincent. He doesn't need LIAT in the first place. He's a minority shareholder in LIAT. He bears the least losses when the LIAT goes under. And he has 2 airlines already serving his own country. He doesn't need LIAT. So far from getting out of politics, our friend comrade Ralph is getting further into aviation.
Wow.
News to you.
Wow.
Siddiqui, I see you raising your eyebrows. I want to hear you chime in on this.
Again, gentlemen, as I say, over the years, I think the question of carriers serving the region has been a complex issue. If the gentleman here and all the others who seem to know can tell me why Air Jamaica or Guyana Airways or even Caribbean Airlines, for example, show me the success stories in the region for all the private sector-driven carriers, and let us follow their model with LIAT. It is not as simple as we seem to think from time to time. And I'm saying that the bottom line is we need airlift between all the islands in the Caribbean. And for that to take place, the model has to be that a flight operating from Tortola to St. Vincent or Tortola to Grenada has to break even or make a profit. And if it can't operate and it is essential for the people in those particular destinations, then we have to find a mechanism to subsidize. Now, Terry has a proposal which maybe should be looking.
Wait a minute.
Why not look at Terry's proposal?
Hold on, Siddiqui.
Put on the table.
Siddiqui, hold on a sec.
Already exists for that.
Say again, James.
A mechanism already exists for exactly that. And that is what, in fact, American Airlines started out doing in Grenada South. Is where they went to the Grenada government in secret. They went to the Prime Minister and they said, we want you to guarantee seat loads. And the Prime Minister agreed to it. And it was done in secret. And I remember it because I remember passing through Grenada and picking up a newspaper with an expose. Somebody in the Prime Minister's office exposed it, provided copies to the newspaper, and they published it.
So are you saying you're against that being done with LIAT, or you for it, or what? What is your
I am not against such a device happening. What I am saying is that if you want to support a route that is not producing, then there are ways to support it. One of them is to go to the tourism authority of the country and say, listen, these flights are not providing enough revenue for us to make a profit on it. We would like you to provide a subsidy.
All right, here, let me toss this one out.
Understand, and then that becomes folded into the fare, and it's not called a tax. It's folded into the fare because it is a cost of the airline doing business.
Okay.
If I have 48 seats, and day after day after day, I only have 10 people traveling, either I give up the route or somebody pays some money.
Exactly.
Okay, but the way to do it is not by walking around the Caribbean with a bucket begging for money.
All right, guys.
You know, formalize it. Do it something proper. Do something professional. But this bucket stuff is ridiculous.
Okay, hold on. Let me get a couple of words in here. I don't want to leave viewers out. Lincoln Depardine says, everybody agrees and would like LIAT to run efficiently and even to return a profit. To do that, there is one thing that's needed: money. That money would come in only a few ways: investments, local, regional, international, new models for acquiring that money, or travelers paying real market value for fares to get around the Caribbean. So, If the real market fare from Grenada to Trinidad is $5,000, we'll have to pay it if we want LIAT to keep flying. Lincoln, one thing I didn't hear you mention there, which is a critical issue coming out of the discussion this morning. Management. Management is not just, you could have all kinds of money in the world. You ain't going nowhere unless you manage those bucks properly. Exactly. Here's a comment from Clint Edwards. George, can you ask Terry what was his position on the bailing out of LIAT when he was a part of this present administration? And why, and Terry, why didn't the administration contribute to LIAT financially then? Why do you think there has been a change of heart now by the government?
Well, first of all, let me clarify that I was never part of the government when this occurred. As a matter of fact, I've never been a part of the government. I have left the New National Party administration over 2 years now, in case this gentleman is not aware. And when government decided recently to make a contribution to LIAT, my proposal remained the same, that our taxes ought not to be used to pump into LIAT. There are more intricate investigations into LIAT's operation that is needed, and I propose the same proposal that I have made today. Let the people of the region invest in LIAT, no matter what small amounts, and get a good dividend on their investment, and they can use it via all the means that I have already indicated.
All right, let me give everybody about a minute and a half. I'm going to start with you, Siddiqui. Spell out...
Yeah, George, I think that the various proposals that are being put forward by us here and by others should be looked at. And you need, to look at it in an objective way. But the bottom line has to be that an entity, an airline needs to serve all the islands of the Caribbean, or most of them, and that airline has to break even or make a profit. Whatever mechanism you come up with, it has to happen. Yes, there is problems, and there have been problems over the years. I know of in the management of LIAT. I can testify to that. I won't say it now, but there have been problems, and some of them have been addressed, some yet to be addressed.
All right. Let me hear you, Terry.
George, LIAT is by no means an easy operation. Tremendous decisions need to be made with respect to equipment choice. There's high costs with respect to maintenance as a result of the up and down operation. Management needs to be looked at. LIAT needs, in my opinion, to expand. And I've said before, LIAT has had, since the 1980s, landing rights into North America, and they should look at expanding their operation rather than contracting. LIAT needs fresh money into their system. Taking the taxes of the Caribbean people to pump into LIAT without effectively looking at the politics in LIAT, looking at the politicians running LIAT, looking at equipment choices, maintenance costs, all the other complex aspect of running LIAT needs to be looked at seriously. But I maintain, in order for LIAT to get fresh money without having to go to a bank, the Caribbean people need to make that tough decision in collaboration with their governments to say, hey, we are going to invest $100 EC via our water companies to start with, and LIAT must give us back 300% in return, but not cash refund from LIAT. I can now use that $400 coupon to pay taxes, to pay my water rates, and to pay for other services. This is a collaborative arrangement that must be established with LIAT, the governments, and the people of the region, a real coming together for LIAT survival.
James, I mean, before I give you your 2 cents here to wrap it up, now that he has repeated his proposal, have you given a second thought to what's being put forward?
I didn't agree with it in the first place, and I'm not about to agree with it now.
Okay.
How about that, sir?
All right. Lincoln also didn't agree with me when I said that you need management more than you need money. He says here, but it still comes back to money. You acquire and or save money by reducing waste. You put and increase money in the bank by properly managing your money. No matter how you look at it, you need money. Terry, you're nodding your head?
Of course.
All right. James?
Yes, sir.
You got about a minute and a half. Let it roll.
I pretty much said everything I wanted to say. The saving of LIAT is a relatively easy process. The hard part is getting the politicians to step aside, and especially a little short, fat one, a little north of Grenada there. He has been stopping LIAT from going forward for decades. It was probably about 10 years ago that I went to a bank in Turkey, and I arranged to borrow $200 million for the purpose of buying the majority of LIAT. And I made a formal proposal to Ralph Gonzalez as chairman of LIAT, and I said, I will put $200 million into LIAT as long as I have control over the board and management. I didn't hear a word from him for about 2 weeks, and eventually I heard he was going to have a press conference in St. Vincent, and I planted the seed with one of the journalists there, and he asked the question, well, what about this offer to buy most of LIAT? And he referred to me as a buccaneer. He said he would never sell LIAT to a buccaneer like me. Now, where he got the idea that I was a buccaneer, but he seemed to be highly offended that I would ever propose to take control of LIAT away from him. This is who you're dealing with. Saving LIAT is relatively easy. It's straightforward. Pull the parasites out of LIAT and put in professional management and let them do what they're supposed to do. They know what they're doing. They've done it before. Put in a turnaround artist. I can put you in contact with one right now. But you're not going to move management or board from LIAT if the politicians do not allow you to. The politicians work for us. We don't work for them. But none of them seem to recognize that fact. Once they become elected, they're the dictators. And they will dictate for 4 years or however long. We seem to have everything backwards in this world nowadays. You know, Donald Trump doesn't. We don't work. Americans don't work for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is supposed to be working for them. If you get my drift, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I hear you. All right.
But George, if I can just pull in there quickly. James, I believe out of this discussion, we have agreed on all the points that you have made. Save and accept how we will get the money. LIAT cannot go to a financial institution to raise a mortgage. And we have to accept that reality. LIAT is choked all the way up to the eyeballs in loans. Where are they going to get the money from? That is the $100 question which I have put forward, and you have not yet said why that proposal is not realistic.
In return, let me say this. How did LIAT get $100 million out of the CDB?
Well, politics again.
Politics again, because you see, they got it the wrong way around. CDB does not work for the politicians.
But
right?
They have influence.
Somehow the politicians are calling the shots of the CDB.
This is why LIAT is where it is. Too much politics. We agree on all of that. And we have to fix management, etc. We have to get right equipment. All of these things, we all agree in principle. The only thing that we are missing right now is how are we going to get the money to LIAT to survive, to provide that much needed service.
Equipment is one of the sore points that I have, in that Captain Ian Brunton, who was CEO of Caribbean Airlines. I don't know if you know that, but while he was at Caribbean Airlines, Caribbean Airlines bought $100 million worth of ATRs.
Mm-hmm.
We later found out that he got a commission on those.
Well, that's the same problem that LIAT experienced.
Now he comes to LIAT, and while he's CEO of LIAT, LIAT buys $100 million in ATRs.
And those
he gets
were
commission on them too.
And those were improper aircrafts for the type of route LIAT is serving. We agree on that.
Because
Improper.
Those are aircraft for commuter use, beg your pardon, light commuter use.
Executive style
Europe and
aircrafts.
Japan.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
We agree equipment is a major consideration for LIAT success. The right equipment for the route.
All right. Gentlemen, we have to hightail it out of here, but I'll tell you what, I've been so thoroughly informed and entertained this morning, especially by you, James. I know you're a busy man, and I know you have a lot on your plate, but I'll tell you what, you're on a mailing list now, and on Thursdays you're going to receive an invitation to appear on a program called Make We Chat on a Thursday evening. And even without speaking to the producer, whom I'm sure is listening to us right now, a lady by the name of Beverly Sinclair, I'm taking the liberty to extend an invitation to you. Not saying you have to be there every Thursday night, but whenever you have the time, because this discussion on LIAT has to continue. And a lot came out of it this morning. Thank you very much, Siddiqui, for your contribution.
Can I make a 30-second statement?
30 seconds, that's it.
I would like to see, for those who really feel that LIAT is so bad, etc., maybe a private sector-driven company should start up. James, you said you could have raised $200 million some time ago. Maybe raise that money together with some others, start a company, serve all islands in the Caribbean, lower fares, lower taxes. Let's serve the people of the Caribbean with proper airlift. Private sector driven.
I have a business plan as it stands. I have a business plan over 200 pages long to start a regional airline, and I mean regional, not sub-regional, across the entire CARICOM with medium haul jets, Airbuses, and other kinds of aircraft, turboprops. And I'm looking for about the same kind of money right now, but I want a loan, not investors. Because when you talk about investors, they all come from North America, and they're what I call vulture capitalists. They're not interested in the investment itself. They're interested in how much money they can suck out of it.
So you're talking...
What I want to do is get a loan, and after I have proven the airline after 5 years, then to put it to an IPO and allow small Caribbean investors to buy the airline in shares.
Caribbean investors, keywords there. Thank you very much, James. I look forward to hearing from you again. And to you too, Siddiqui and Terry, obviously. Thanks a lot for coming.
Pleasure indeed.
Welcome. Okay.
Welcome, sir.
All right. Okie dokie, folks. Wow. These guys were hot this morning. They were hot. Thank you so much. Pilgrims, let me take another little break here. Come back, wrap it up.
Boy, they gonna fly with Kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming.
Karim, what you doing? Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, Kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, it can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADA. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
Wow. Told you it was going to be good, didn't I? Okay. Folks, time to bail out of here right now, but as always, we do leave you with a parting word from the Holy Scriptures, and this one comes to you from the book of Colossians, Colossians chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Listen carefully. Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which are all idolatry. Because of these, the wrath of God is coming. Pilgrims, Colossians 3, 5 to 6. I'm going to scoot right now. Thanks to all of you on Facebook. Because of the activity we had going on here this morning, I was not able to pay you as much attention as I normally would. Same on Rumble Chat. But I do thank you for joining us. And I'm going to ask you to join us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and every weekday morning at 9, from 9 to 10, for Good Day Grenada. All right? Georgie Porgy is going to send God's blessings your way, and by His grace, we shall see thee again soon. Alrighty, folks, we're going to turn